Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Cavana, and this is The Slant. Week 1 of the NFL is in the books, and we have a lot to talk about. So let's not waste any time. Let's just get right into it. First, let's start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go into New Orleans and take down the Saints, who were a red-hot team last year. I am floored by this. And what surprises me even more is the score. 48-40. What the hell happened? Maybe Buccaneers head coach Dirk Koetter could explain.
I'm happy to announce that Fitzmagic is alive and well.
Folks, that's the only way I can explain it to you. That's the only way that anyone could probably explain this crazy, outrageous game. Ryan Fitzpatrick obviously made a deal with the devil before that game because he was possessed. Over 400 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and both Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson had over 145 yards receiving. That is just crazy. I said last week that Fitzpatrick would have to have the game of his life to win this game, but to be fair, I also said they would still probably lose by like 3 points or something. But I'll give him credit. He ended the game when he needed to. He ran for that first down on 3rd and 11, and he got the job done. Jameis Winston better be careful too, because if Fitzpatrick keeps playing like this, Jameis is going to lose his job. Because this is unbelievable. Hats off to the Bucs. I was dead wrong about this game. They surprised everyone, honestly. So, hats off to them. Great job, guys. Now, moving ahead, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news, the Browns' losing streak of 17 games is over. The bad news, it ended in a tie. Watching that game, I picked the Steelers to win, but I felt so bad for Cleveland that I really wanted them to win. I didn't think they would even get that close, to be honest. I figured it'd be a good game, but I figured the Steelers would squeeze that one out. But for a game to end like that, it just breaks my heart because Cleveland had 6 turnovers against the Steelers, and they only had 1 on their own offense. So they were looking really good, and for it to end in a tie against a rival that's had their number for years, that's tough. But don't feel too down, Browntown. I believe that Cleveland will come back, and yes, I know I'm rhyming. It's terrible. I believe that they will come back and win some big games this year. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs or anything. I even think they're going to have a winning record, but they're going to win some games. For sure. That defense is just too good. If anything, I would be more worried if I was a Steelers fan. Not saying I am or am not, but either way, they turned the ball over way too much in that game. Granted, it was raining, and it was the first game of the year, and, offenses are still trying to click, blah, blah, blah. Still, that did not look like Steelers football on offense. And no, not because Le'Veon Bell wasn't there. James Conner ran for 136 yards and basically had like 200 scrimmage yards. I can't remember exactly what his receiving yards were, but overall, he had a good game. And he was not the issue. The issue was Ben Roethlisberger turning the ball over on numerous occasions. I mean, you can't win games when you play like that. They're lucky they ended the game in a tie. I see some bad luck coming their way soon. It's not going to be a pretty year if they keep playing like this. Bell or no Bell, really. It doesn't matter. Speaking of Le'Veon Bell, though, his holdout, in my opinion, is stupid. I get that he wants to get paid like a receiver and a running back. But, dude, the lifespan of these guys is not that long. Running backs deteriorate quickly. Unless you're Adrian Peterson, who basically defies the laws of aging, you're not going to last that long, and you really just need to take a good chunk of money. I mean, they were willing to offer you Todd Gurley money, and if I were you, I would take it because, frankly, Gurley's younger and just a better runner than you, just in my wholehearted opinion. And if anyone wants to dispute my claim that Todd Gurley's a better running back in general by saying, oh, well, Bell's a better pass catcher, maybe, but not by that much. If you've seen Todd Gurley catch passes, he's pretty damn good too. So I would not go that far as to say Bell is better just because of that. Then we had the least surprising game of the week. In fact, The score of this game made me look like a damn genius, if I do say so myself. Sorry, guys, my ego kind of slipped out there. Oh, jeez. Anywho, Ravens and Bills, 47-3, total blowout. Nathan Peterman looked like crap, as I was completely expecting, and the Ravens dominated. The offensive line looked terrible, and to be honest, the defense didn't look that good either. I was very surprised because the defense is the strength of Buffalo, so they obviously got a lot of work to do, and I would say get Josh Allen out there, but honestly, I would think you would want to preserve him just because the offensive line is so bad that you don't want to risk him getting a serious injury and ruining his career and, in essence, ruining the chance of being good and basically wasting that draft pick you had. And we saw Josh Allen a little bit on Sunday, and I could see why. Nathan Peterman was a total train wreck, so it was good that he got some snaps in, and he looked pretty decent. But honestly, with that offensive line, there's no way anyone can do well right now behind that Buffalo line. So might as well let Peterman just burn in the fire until you get a better line, so that Josh Allen will be ready when the time comes. Then there was the Texans and the Patriots. And to be honest, the Texans easily could have won this game. There were so many missed opportunities on offense. And Tom Brady was frustrated by that defense. Like I said, I figured that's what would happen. The defense would frustrate Tom Brady all game. And they were able to hold Brady and them to 6 points in the second half. But unfortunately, Watson and the Texans really just could not capitalize at all. The offense looked sloppy, hurried, and honestly, just not good at all. Of course, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised considering how bad that Texans offensive line is. And now it's only gotten worse because one of their big free agent pickups, Central Henderson, the right tackle, is now out for the year with an ankle injury. So what was bad is now going to be even worse. So unless the Texans address this situation very soon, they are not going to have a good year, and Bill O'Brien might be in trouble. Now let's backtrack to last Thursday when the Falcons went to go visit the world champion Eagles. Now, as I figured, the Eagles would win, and as I also figured it would be an ugly game and the defenses would dominate. Of course, at the end of the game, Nick Foles somehow was able to lead a game-winning drive, and Ajayi was able to run his way into the end zone, and the Eagles defense was able to hold out Matt Ryan on 4th and goal, and really it was like 5th and goal because he got a penalty that was total BS on an overthrow, and it was illegal contact, quote unquote. So really, they had 5 tries to the end zone, and they still couldn't do it. Just like in the playoff game, they couldn't do it, and that's honestly what I was expecting. So Eagles did not look good offensively. The Falcons didn't look good at all. And they lost 2 key stars, with Deion Jones on IR currently, and Keanu Neal tore his ACL, so he's out for the year. So Falcons, it's not looking too good. Eagles, they need to step up their offense, or it's going to look bad for them too. And of course, this all depends on when Carson Wentz comes back and how well he will play when he comes back. But for the moment, I'm not feeling good about either team. Now tracking back to Sunday, the Colts and the Bengals game was a really interesting one. And my prediction was almost correct. I had the Colts winning by like 3 points. They were down by 4 with a minute left. And Andrew Luck passed the ball to Jack Doyle on 3rd and 15. And right as he got to the first down line, he fumbled the ball. And one of the Bengals picked it up and ran it all the way back. And with like 11 seconds left, that was basically your ball game. So I was almost right on that one. If he just didn't fumble it. Damn. No, but seriously, it was a good game all around. Andy Dalton looked good. Andrew Luck looked great coming back. He really carried his team yet again, which is only further proof he needs more help. And honestly, like I said, I think Cincinnati's going to be good this year, and they proved it. They looked really good on offense. Granted, I don't think the Colts defense is the best in the world, nor does really anybody. But honestly, Cincinnati's looking good, and they're already off to a better start than I thought they'd have. So get ready, folks. Cincinnati's going to be good. All right, next we got the Jaguars and the Giants, and as I expected, the Jaguars would win. It'd be a close game. Blake Bortles would just not have to turn the ball over, get a touchdown, maybe a couple field goals. He did that, and the Jaguars defense handled the rest. In fact, they actually scored a touchdown themselves. So overall, it was a good effort. Of course, OBJ got the better of the entire Jacksonville defense. I think Jalen Ramsey was not able to keep up with him, and OBJ was coming off an injury, so that's really saying something. And honestly, I'm not his biggest fan, but he played a good game, and I got to give it to him. He really showed up. 11 receptions, 111 yards. That's a lot of ones, by the way. And overall, I think the Giants are going to be better. Saquon Barkley showed off why he was the number 2 overall pick. He didn't look too great for most of the game. Then he broke off a 68-yard run. That's kind of what they say he does. So if that's what they're looking for, then power to the Giants. They got what they wanted. So overall, I think the Giants are going to compete with the Redskins for the division, and I think they're going to do well. And we shall see what happens at the end of the season. So now we move on to one of my favorite matchups from the weekend, and that was the San Francisco 49ers going to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And it was Kirk Cousins' first game, and I thought he did pretty well. No turnovers, 2 touchdown passes. He led them to win the game, and honestly, he didn't have to do too much because that defense is stifling. That defense just shut down Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll give him credit, though. He really took a beating, and he really stood in there the whole game. He kept them in contention. So it's not like he looked bad. It's just that Vikings defense looked really good, and Marquise Goodwin went out with an injury early in that game, so he was kind of limited in who he could throw to. So definitely not an easy game in the first place, but when you're out your fastest wide receiver, that does hurt, and that makes it even harder. So I'm not worried about the Niners. I think they'll bounce back, but obviously this was a setback, and we know now that Jimmy G is human, he is mortal, and he can lose games as a starter. Now let's move on to what was the longest NFL game in history, or at least since the merger in 1970. It was the Titans and the Dolphins in Miami, and there was almost 4 hours of weather delays, which is, God, I couldn't even imagine being at that game or even working that game. Ugh, could you imagine what it's like being an employee of that stadium and you just want to go home? Oh, man. But basically, yeah, the game was 7 hours and 10 minutes. I mean, oh my God, that's just terrible. And it wasn't even that good of a game. I mean, at the end, Marcus Mariota was out with an injury. And then at the end of the game, Delaney Walker, tore up his ankle, so he's out for the year. But that doesn't look good for Titans fans, by the way. But seriously, 7 hours. What the hell, man? I mean, that's just terrible. I mean, obviously you can't control the weather, but oh, jeez, that's just terrible. Either way, though, the Titans did not look very good. Hopefully Mariota coming back will help. And I think it will. Because honestly, Blaine Gabbert was terrible. Dolphins looked pretty good. Of course, this was, first game of the season, so it's hard to tell. But Tannehill looked good coming back. It was good to see him back. And that's really all I have to say about that. Okay, so let's move on to the 4 o'clock games. To start, we'll talk about Dallas and Carolina. Now, the Dallas defense came to play. I mean, that was impressive on their part. Dallas's offense, on the other hand, not so good. They proved that really they don't have anybody to replace Witten or Dez, and it's starting to hurt them a bit. So they need to figure something out, and fast, because Dak Prescott's he's getting eaten alive. The Panthers sacked him 6 times. And if he wasn't mobile, he probably would have gotten sacked like 10 times. But they also held Ezekiel Elliott to 69 yards on 15 carries. So he had a decent day. He didn't have a great day. Honestly, the Carolina defense did a really good job of shutting him down, because really they did all they could do. Because, if the offense scored more for the Panthers, he probably would have only had like 6 or 7 rushing attempts, and we probably would have seen a similar result like we did in the Broncos game last year, where Zeke Elliott was basically shut down. He only had like 5 or 6 carries, and he just had nothing going the whole day. I honestly blame the Panthers' offense for not moving the ball more. Of course, the injuries on their offensive line certainly didn't help, and then losing Greg Olsen and Darrell Williams was not good, especially since it looks like both of them are going to be out for quite a while, probably about like 8 weeks or so, which is bad news for them because their offensive line already was kind of shaky. I personally saw Taylor Moton doing really well. I don't know what the complaints were about him because he actually held it down really well at left tackle. Overall, I don't know if it was just some of them weren't 100% ready to go, if the line just wasn't meshed right yet, or if some of them really were hurt and they just weren't saying anything, or what. But there were times where they played really good, and there were times where they played really bad. So really, I blame the offensive line for the offensive struggles. Because honestly, Cam Newton looked like he was shot out of a cannon. I mean, the guy was on fire the first drive of the game. I mean, he looked unbelievable. The way he was running the ball, some of his passes were really good. And honestly, throughout the day, it's just his line. If he had more time to throw, he would have torched that Dallas defense. But he couldn't get away from the pass rush of DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory until he got a concussion, and Tyrone Crawford, and just, well, other guys on that defensive line. Honestly, they did a pretty good job against that. I don't know what to make of the Panthers line, but I'm going to say mediocre right now. But I'll tell you what, though, that Panthers defense is no joke. Seriously, they were on fire on Sunday. They shut down everything. Of course, this isn't the world's best offense, at least in terms of passing with Dak Prescott, but honestly, what they did against the Dallas Cowboys and most of their all-pro offensive line, obviously, not having Travis Frederick with that disease he's got doesn't help, but having, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, La'el Collins, and a veteran in Joe Looney, who's not bad. He's just not Travis Frederick. But overall, it's a tough line to get past, and the Panthers front got past it on just about every play. I mean, they were dominating. So I would watch out for this Panthers defense. And if you don't believe me, believe it or not, you should hear what Skip Bayless has to say about it.
Especially at home, this defense is stout, it is physical, and it plays really fast. I think it's being underrated. And trust me on this, Drew Brees and Matt Ryan are going to be made to look ordinary when they have to visit Carolina. And Eli has to visit there on October the 7th. He will get terrorized by this defense.
I normally don't agree with Skip Bayless, but this is one of those times I think he's dead on. I think he's 100% correct. And honestly, he said it better than anyone else this weekend because most of the NFL bigwig media idiots were just saying, oh, what's wrong with Dallas? Their line, it's bad. Dallas is bad. It can't be Carolina. They can't be good. No, it was definitely Carolina. I mean, Dallas will be okay. I think they'll recover after this game. I think they'll go on to win many more games this season and make a run at the playoffs. I don't know if they'll make it, but I think they'll have a chance. But honestly, he gave credit where it was due. That Carolina defense is no joke. And now for another game I wasn't expecting much out of, the Redskins and the Cardinals. And I'm going to be honest, the Redskins came to play. Adrian Peterson was motivated. He ran through people. And honestly, it was just a good game for the Redskins altogether. Defense was good. Offense was good. It was real impressive. And it was good to see Alex Smith doing really well too, because I've always liked him. So seeing him do well in the new Redskins offense, seeing them put a lot of points up, seeing AP still have it, still have the juice, still have the motivation and the drive to keep playing really well. It was really good to see. And honestly, I picked the Cardinals, but this was kind of a toss-up game for me. I was like, you know what? I really don't know who's going to win, so I'm just going to lean on the home team. But obviously, I was wrong. The Redskins were ready to play, and the Cardinals were not. They did not look good at all. Sam Bradford looked very shaky, very erratic with his passes, and honestly kind of careless too. He just put it up there sometimes when he really shouldn't have. And overall, the Cardinals have work to do, and they need to get to it fast because right now they're 0-1, and the way they played on Sunday, they could easily go like 0-4 or 5. It's not looking good. Now, another game that made me look not so much like a genius, Chargers and Chiefs. Well, I said if the Chargers didn't play up to their potential, they would lose, and, well, they lost. They got humiliated at home against the Chiefs. They eventually kind of made it respectable, only losing by 10, but let's be real, the Chiefs owned that game from the beginning to the end, and Tyreek Hill made them all look very silly on defense. Of course, not having Joey Bosa doesn't help. You're all pro defensive end, but overall, the Chargers just did not play up to what most would expect them to play up to. And, well, the Chiefs really, they look better than I thought they would. They're very impressive so far. Their offense has been clicking, and I guess that makes up for the lack of defense with mostly rookies starting on that defense. So, whatever they're doing, they just got to keep it going. Chargers, I'm not exactly sure on the other hand. They still have issues. Of course, their kicker missed an important field goal that would have put them within one possession with all three of their timeouts, and they would have had a chance to win. But instead, the guy missed, and they ended up looking silly yet again. And yet again, the Chargers blew a game because of a field goal kicker. This was their problem last year. That's why they lost so many games early last year. That's how they got in the hole that they couldn't get out of last year. So, you need to figure out your kicker situation. This is getting ridiculous. And you need to learn how to get off to a better start in a game. Because when they get behind, it just compounds on them. So, that's my suggestion to the Chargers. Learn how to start games faster and get points quicker. And fix the kicking situation, because seriously, this is ridiculous. And now for the last of the late afternoon games, the Seahawks and the Broncos. And it wasn't exactly what I predicted. I predicted that the Broncos would win 16-10. Case Keenum would have one touchdown, no turnovers, and it would end with a strip sack of Russell Wilson. Did not exactly end that way. Case Keenum, 3 touchdowns, but also 3 interceptions. And Russell Wilson had 2 picks, and he was stripped once by Von Miller, so at least I was kind of right on that. And honestly, it was a great game. I mean, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. It was higher scoring than I was expecting, to be honest. But in the end, the Broncos did win, and Case Keenum looked pretty good. And the Seahawks, they put up a good fight, but Von Miller was all over Russell Wilson, and it was pretty cool to see because we'd never really seen them go head to head. We saw it about 4 years ago, but that was when the Seahawks were still on their Super Bowl high, so it wasn't really like down to earth. These two teams this time both have been away from their Super Bowl for at least a couple years, and they had the chance to be grounded by a couple years of suckiness, or at least not Super Bowl wins. So we got to see a matchup between two grounded teams with different philosophies. Denver pass rush, pass rush, pass rush, and then Case Keenum, play good, don't turn the ball over, but get some good touchdowns every once in a while, throw a couple deep passes, and then the Seahawks carry with Russell Wilson, have his magic on high in the fourth quarter, and have the defense, shut people down, even though they're not the Legion of Boom anymore. So, 2 different philosophies, not too different, but it was cool to see Von Miller really go after Russell Wilson. It's hard to see anyone really go after him like that. I mean, even the best of pass rushers have a hard time against him. So it was really cool to see. Overall, good matchup, good game, and a great first start for Case Keenum as a Denver Bronco. Now we move on to the Sunday night game, and it was Khalil Mack and the Bears taking on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And at the start of this game, the Packers getting stopped by the Bears defense was impressive, and then Mitch Trubisky and the offense going down the field right away and scoring a touchdown. I was like, oh boy, we have a ball game here. We may see a big-time Bears win. Of course, that didn't happen because Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, we know he's good, but for God's sakes, the media just would not let go. They were like, oh my God, this is greatest accomplishment ever. He's the greatest, and it's the biggest comeback, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, The dude got paid 130 something million dollars. I mean, really, we're gonna act like what? He's like some rookie or something? I mean, this is ridiculous. The guy's paid to do stuff like this. It's kind of expected, honestly. I mean, yes, was it impressive? Of course it was. I mean, the Bears defense was dominating in the first half. But I mean, come on now. This is not anything that surprising. I mean, anyone with a brain knew that if Rodgers came out, scoring on that first drive when they came back, they were going to be in for a comeback. So I don't see what the big deal is, but of course, everyone in the NFL media was just gushing all over it like it was something brand new, even though we've seen it a million times. But moving on to talking about the Bears, I have some pluses and I have some minuses. Pluses, the defense was nasty, especially Khalil Mack. I mean, holy crap. The guy was supposed to be just, playing every few snaps. It wasn't supposed to be like this, where he was playing like lights out, stripping the ball and recovering it himself and getting a pick six. I mean, good God, the guy was destroying people. He was destroying that Packers offensive line. And frankly, if it weren't for Aaron Rodgers having a superhero-like moment, they would have blown out the Packers. The other plus was the Bears' running game, which was really, really effective. The way they used Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard and even Mitch Trubisky on some option plays and some quarterback-designed runs. However, the Bears' biggest mistake of the night, and the reason I'm upset with them, is because it was 3rd and 1 at the Packers' 14-yard line with a little over 2 minutes to go. They get a first down. They're well on their way to winning this game. And they were running the ball really, really well. Like on 2nd and 13, Jordan Howard got 12 yards. So what did they do? Oh, they throw it and they try to trick the Packers. Okay, I'm thinking they do that because they're going to go for it on 4th down. No, they kick a field goal. They were only up by 3. Then they decided, oh, we'll just go up by 6. There's no way Rodgers will score on us again, even though he's been red hot the entire second half. Right, so stupid. And of course they do that. And, of course, Rodgers gets a touchdown. And on, 2nd and 10 on that same drive, that game-winning drive, Kyle Fuller was within a hair of picking off Aaron Rodgers and ending the game. And, of course, he dropped the interception. I mean, it was right in his hands, too. So that's another issue I have with the Bears right now is Kyle Fuller's inability to pick people off. And that's really sad because that would have won him the game. I would have been okay with kicking the field goal if they stopped the Packers. But obviously they didn't. Obviously they won the game. And it was just bad. And even when the Bears had the ball after the Packers scored, they had a chance and they just kept throwing it. They had a potent run game and they had all their timeouts. I mean, they were kicking the Packers' butt when it came to the run game. But they decided just every play, let's throw it. Let's make some bad decisions. Let's have, Mitch Trubisky throw into traffic. I mean, jeez. I did find it hilarious, though, that Clay Matthews got a roughing the passer call after a 4th and 10 stop and basically kept the game going. Of course, Bears still didn't win. They didn't get anything. Could have just, gotten a field goal, would have ended the game and won. But no, they didn't even do that. But I did find it hilarious that he kept the game alive. I'm like, dude, it's 4th down. What are you doing? But either way, it's a big missed opportunity for the Bears. And let's hope they don't make that mistake again against another big team. And now we move on to Monday Night Football with probably the most crazy, unexpected final score of a game between the New York Jets and the Detroit Lions. 48-17. That is hard to wrap my head around. I did not expect that whatsoever. First of all, I expected the Lions to win. Second of all, I didn't think they'd lose that badly. And third of all, I mean, you start out the game with Sam Darnold throwing a pick six. I'm thinking, dang, that's the ball game. I mean, he's going to struggle the whole night. But you know what? I give him a lot of credit. He bounced right back, and within a drive or two, he ended up leading them to a touchdown drive. And he had some nice touchdown passes the other night, too. I mean, he threw some pretty passes. He led his team to victory. The defense handled the rest, and they harassed Stafford. I mean, my God. That defense was just killing him. I mean, poor Stafford. He was getting hit left and right. And there was one hit where he got sandwiched between two guys, and he got hit in the ribs or something. Oh, man, I felt so bad. But yeah, case in point, Jets are a lot better than I thought. Lions are a lot worse than I thought. Of course, this could just be because these two matched up and the Jets were just a better team or what. I don't really know. I mean, is the Jets defense really good or is just the Lions offense really bad? I think it's the Jets defense because, the Lions kept their same offensive coordinator and they were good. They've been good the last couple years. And I have the same questions about the offense of the Jets. Was it that Sam Darnold and the offense was really good? Or was it just the Detroit defense was really bad? I really don't know, to be honest with you. So that's something we'll have to figure out later in the season. And last but not least, the second game of the Week 1 Monday night doubleheader, the Rams and the Oakland Raiders. And this game was kind of how I expected it to go. I'll tell you what, the first drive of the game, Derek Carr and the offense looked red hot. I mean, they were just going straight down the field right away. And that touchdown run by Marshawn Lynch was nothing short of amazing. There was even a guy on top of the pile, literally laying on top of the pile of players that were trying to tackle Marshawn Lynch and keep him from going into the end zone. It was vintage beast mode, if you ask me. But in the second half, the Rams dominated. Oakland was shut out on offense, and the Rams' offense started clicking and getting their run game going and even their passing game going. And Brandon Cooks looked really good for his first game as a Ram. And Marcus Peters looked really good for his first game as a Ram. Overall, Rams did what I was expecting and just stifled the Raiders' offense. And you could just tell the Raiders were missing Khalil Mack because they just had no pass rush against the Rams. Very rarely did they really even get to Goff. The Rams just have too many playmakers, and I knew eventually they would break through and win that game. Took longer than I was expecting, but overall, I was not surprised. So overall, in my picks this weekend, I went 9-6-1, which when you're trying to predict football games, going positive at all is usually really good. So I'm not complaining. Obviously, there were some games that really were close, like the Colts game that I should have been right on, but crazy things happen. That's just how the NFL goes. And honestly, I was not expecting a tie in my first week of predicting games. Nor, did anyone really expect a tie in week 1. But hey, that's the NFL. That's how things go. So now, let's move on to the games that are going to be happening this week. And we will start off with tonight's game, the Cincinnati Bengals playing at home against the Baltimore Ravens. A good old matchup between division rivals on a Thursday night. Honestly, I'm pretty excited about this game. I think it's going to be really good. Andy Dalton had a great week last week. Joe Flacco had a fantastic week last week, freaking dominating against the Bills. So it'll be interesting to see. Will it be a shootout between these two or the two defenses take over? We will have to see. Personally, I can't wait to see more of what this Bengals offense can do between Mixon, Green, Ross, Tyler Eifert, the offensive line holding it down, and then Andy Dalton, of course. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they mesh and how they play against this Ravens defense that honestly is pretty underrated. Of course, this Bengals defense is also underrated. In fact, they've looked downright nasty, and yet no one's really talked about them. They looked nasty throughout the preseason, and they looked pretty damn nasty against the Colts on Sunday. So we shall see how they do against Joe Flacco. I think part of the reason Joe Flacco did so good on Sunday was because of the Bills' offense struggling so much and leaving their defense on the field so much. But it also could be just because, like Alex Smith last year with Patrick Mahomes being drafted, Lamar Jackson being drafted put a fire under Joe and really gave him the spark he needed. So this is going to be a really good game. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think tonight's winner is honestly going to be Cincinnati. Just because they're at home, I feel better about them playing at home than I would in Baltimore. But overall, I think they're a up-and-coming team, and I think they're going to be really dangerous. And I'm not going to count them out twice in 2 weeks. Okay, next matchup. The battle of the two injured teams, Carolina and Atlanta. Now, this is going to be a tough one for both teams just because they're both missing some key players. Carolina's missing Olsen, and they're missing Darrell Williams. Meanwhile, Atlanta's missing Keanu Neal and Deion Jones. So this is going to be a tough matchup all around. Plus, it's now being reported that Panthers All-Pro right guard Trai Turner is going through concussion protocol. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to have to take the home team. And the home team this time is Atlanta. I don't pick them to win by much, but I pick them to win. I think they're going to win probably by a field goal or so. And I'm thinking it's going to be a fairly low-scoring game just because Carolina's defense is really, really good, as I said before in the show. I think they're going to hold Atlanta to probably about 20 points. But unfortunately for Carolina and all their offensive line issues and the fact that they don't have Greg Olsen, I think they're only going to score 17. And I feel like that's going to be just too much to overcome to win the game. Up next, we have the Indianapolis Colts going to face the Washington Redskins. Now, after the way Washington looked last week and the way Indianapolis looked last week, it's going to be a tough matchup. I am having a hard time deciding who I think is going to win. So, when in doubt, go with the home team. And the more I think about it, the more I think they're going to win, just because the way they run the ball with AP, the way Alex Smith is throwing the ball, and the way their defense is playing, it's all very good. And when you combine all that stuff with playing at home, it's hard to not pick the home team. Of course, Luck and the Colts will put up a fight, but I think it's just going to be a little bit too much for the Colts defense to handle Alex Smith and the Redskins offense. Plus, we're a few years removed, but the last time T.Y. Hilton and Josh Norman played each other, Norman shut down Hilton, so this will be an interesting matchup. Okay, next on the list, Houston Texans at Tennessee Titans. Another good old divisional matchup. Now, I'm not going to mince words here. Both offenses last week were putrid. They were bad. Now, to be fair, Mariota did get hurt in this game, and now Delaney Walker's out for the year. So they have a little bit of an excuse, but I don't know. It's just, they still didn't look good. I mean, you'd think, even though Blaine Gabbert's your backup, you'd think they'd at least get some kind of points other than one field goal when the game was already over. But it was just not a good game for them. And same goes for the Texans. They just did not look good. And now Central Henderson, their right tackle, is out for the year. So that only makes their offensive line worse. But at the same time, I think it's hard for me not to pick Houston in this matchup. Only because that Houston defense is an absolute nightmare. Now, Tennessee's defense isn't too bad either. I mean, they didn't exactly do too great against Miami's offense. But then again, it was in Miami. So, and it was week 1. And there was a new scheme. I mean, there's a lot going into it. But, case in point, I think the Texans defense is going to dominate. And I think they're going to take advantage of this struggling Titans offense. I also think Bill O'Brien will scheme the offense away from the offensive line issues so that they're really a non-factor with probably a lot of quick passes. So Watson will start to get in the rhythm. They'll score some points, and the Texans defense will handle the rest. And I think that's the keys to winning the game for the Texans. All right, next on our docket, the Philadelphia Eagles going to visit the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, originally I predicted Philly would win this game and it would be an ugly little blowout. But the Buccaneers have surprised me. The way they played in New Orleans was not only shocking, it was very intriguing. So I'm picking the Bucs to win now. And I think they're going to win in a fairly convincing manner because that Saints defense is no slouch. And to put up 48 points against them is extremely impressive. And Philly's defense is also really good. But the difference in this game is Philly's offense is not very good. And Tampa's at home instead of on the road. So until Carson Wentz comes back, I'm convinced that the Eagles are going to struggle offensively. And honestly, they don't have what it takes to win this game. So I'm definitely taking the Bucs. Okay, now for a matchup that Andy Reid never seems to like very much, the Chiefs at the Steelers. And obviously I don't know for sure if he doesn't like it, but I mean, why wouldn't he? He keeps losing to the Steelers all the time. But you know what, folks? I think this time's going to be a little bit different. I think this time the Chiefs are going to go into Pittsburgh and they're going to go kick the Steelers' butts. Because the way that offense looked last week with Patrick Mahomes, it was deadly. It was ferocious. It was fast. And that kid has a hell of an arm. So I got to pick the Chiefs in this one. Steelers just did not look the same. And I don't care if Le'Veon Bell is there or not. That's not the reason they look just bad. You know, it's not because of him being missing. I think it's just because Roethlisberger's getting old. I think he doesn't have it anymore, and he could prove me wrong. He could be great this season, but I just don't think he has the juice anymore. Not like he used to, at least. Plus, I think people are just starting to kind of figure out this Steelers offense. I mean, obviously, deep passes to Brown and running with Bell isn't that complicated, but I don't know. They just don't have the same firepower they used to. So I'm thinking now that the Chiefs are going to figure it out and they're going to win this game, and the Steelers are going to go 0-1-1. It's a very weird start to the season to have a tie and a loss but no wins for the Steelers of all teams. Pretty strange, man. Pretty strange. Now, this matchup is not going to be so complicated. The LA Chargers going to Buffalo to face the Bills. Honestly, I see a blowout coming. Unless that Buffalo defense steps up big time, they're going to lose. And the reason I say this is because Nathan Peterman is just garbage. I'm sorry, but he's just not good. And unless he can just start balling out and he can change my mind about him, I'm going to pick the Bills to lose every game that he starts because he's just not good. He's very shaky. He seems to lack confidence. And honestly, he just seems scared out there. He's making a lot of bad decisions. And against a good Chargers defense like this, with or without Joey Bosa, I think they're going to get creamed. For all we know, Nathan Peterman will have a repeat performance of how he played in LA last year against the Chargers, where he threw 5 picks in the first half, which I still never understood why he was a starter in that game anyway, because Tyrod was playing great. But hey, Tyrod Taylor's in Cleveland now, so obviously that's not an issue for Peterman anymore, even though Josh Allen is standing there right behind him. And frankly, I don't care who's at quarterback right now. The offensive line is just too terrible to overcome it. So either way, Chargers win, and I don't even think it's going to be close. Up next, Miami Dolphins at New York Jets. And I think this is going to be another game that is really, it's too early to tell who these two teams are. But as of right now, after the way the Jets played on Monday night, I got to pick the Jets. The way that Jets defense harassed Matthew Stafford throughout that game, on the road nonetheless, was extremely impressive. And Sam Darnold played really well after that pick six he threw on his first pass. Of course, Miami did look pretty good in their win against Tennessee last week, but I think it's just going to be too tough of a task on the road. So, honestly, this is one of those cases of, since they're at home, I got to pick them because picking the road team would just be a little too difficult. So, I pick the Jets. Up next, we have the Browns visiting the New Orleans Saints. Now, if what happened on Sunday between the Bucs and the Saints didn't happen, I would have already told you, okay, the Saints are going to win big time. But the Browns, the way they played on Sunday and the way the Saints' defense was on Sunday, those two things coming together, I don't know. This is a tough matchup. I still think the Saints are going to win, but it's going to be a close game. Tyrod Taylor's going to have a good game against a Saints defense that was really not that good last week at all in any facet. And I think Drew Brees is going to have a tough time against that Cleveland defense that has clearly gotten much better. I mean, they forced 6 turnovers against the Steelers, so it's going to be a close game. It's going to be tough, but at the end of the day, I think the Saints will come out with a close win. Now for what, in my opinion, will probably be the best 1 o'clock game on Sunday. The Vikings going to visit the Packers. A good old divisional rivalry. We've had a few of those this weekend. And I think if the Vikings play like they did at home on Sunday last week, they're going to win this game. Because Aaron Rodgers and them, they did not look good, especially in that first half. But even in the second half, when Rodgers was limping around throwing for his life, I still think that was partially just the Bears got caught off guard more than anything else. I think the Vikings are going to go in there. They're going to have a game plan. They're going to be ready for a full and healthy Rodgers to play. And they're going to come up with a good game plan, and they're going to win that game. Because that defense is no joke. And Kirk Cousins and the offense look good too. Granted, the Packers defense looked pretty solid on Sunday night as well, but I think Cousins and them are going to get just a little bit more on the scoreboard than the Packers are. So I think it's going to be a good game. And we shall see who wins, but I'm taking the Vikings. Now on to a great quarterback showdown when Matthew Stafford's Lions go to visit Jimmy Garoppolo's 49ers. I can't wait to see Jimmy Garoppolo in his first home game since last year. I think he's going to do real well. And I think this Detroit defense is not going to have an answer for them. I think Niners win. I'm just going to say that right away. After the way the Lions looked on Monday night and the way Stafford just got razzled by that Jets defense, I just don't see how they can win. I think it's going to be a little bit too tough with it being a road game and all, and the fact that they're coming off a short week. Plus, Jimmy G's going to be putting up points, and Stafford's going to have to answer against a pretty good San Francisco defense. So, at the end of the day, could the Lions win? Sure, but are they going to? Probably not. Now let's stay out west as the Arizona Cardinals go to face the LA Rams in Los Angeles. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is going to be a blowout. The Rams are going to win very easily. And I can say that with absolute confidence after what I saw from them on Monday night against the Raiders. That defense is stout and that offense is ready to go. Sean McVay has got a great crew, and he has been phenomenal for the Rams since he first arrived. And on the other side, the Cardinals do not look good so far. Steve Wilkes, you got to get your guys together because this is not looking good so far. Bradford is not looking good, and honestly, just your whole crew is not looking good so far. But there is potential. There is a chance to improve. I think once Josh Rosen takes over, some things will change. But for now, Arizona's not looking that good, and I see a very easy win for the Los Angeles Rams. Next up, we got the Oakland Raiders going to visit the Denver Broncos. And this is another matchup that I think is going to be in the home team's favor, just because Broncos looked really good against the Seahawks last Sunday, and the Raiders did not look that good at home against the LA Rams. They struggled mightily on offense, and their defense could not get a pass rush. So unless somehow they can get to Case Keenum, I don't think they're going to win this game. And honestly, that Oakland offensive line is pretty good, but to be realistic, you got a lot to deal with Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and all the other guys on the front lines. Plus, you got Roby and Chris Harris to deal with in the secondary. So overall, this is just too tough of a matchup for the Raiders, especially on the road where it's pretty loud in Denver. If it was in Oakland, I'd say they have a chance, but this is just too tough for the Raiders. And now we have the primetime spot for CBS, the 4:30 game with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, personally my favorite commentating team, as the Jacksonville Jaguars host the New England Patriots. And I can't wait to see the rematch between Brady and this Jacksonville defense. And this time, it'll be in Jacksonville, so the crowd will be against him, which is always helpful when you're trying to play Tom Brady. I mean, it's hard to rattle him at all, but anything can help, and anything can make a difference on any given Sunday when playing him. So any help you can get, you take it. Now, after the way Brady played against that Texans defense last Sunday, he played good. He threw for 3 touchdowns, but he looked rattled, especially in the second half. I mean, being held to only 6 points, that's pretty impressive, especially when you're playing in New England. So, to be on the road this time and to have to play probably the best defense in the league right now in Jacksonville, it's going to be tough. But if there's anyone who can handle the pressure, it's Tom Brady. So, I picked the Patriots to win. And here's the reason why. Last week I said the Jaguars would win because Blake Bortles would do enough on offense to win the game. This week, they're going to need a lot more from him, and I don't think he's going to be able to do it. So that's why I picked the Patriots to win, because they're going to need him to put up like 27 to 30 points most likely. Or they're going to need him to at least have long, sustaining drives to keep the defense off the field so they're fresh against Tom Brady. I don't think he's going to be able to do either one of those. Belichick's going to have a game plan to shut him down, shut Fournette down, and in essence, win the game through a battle of attrition. Because eventually that Jacksonville defense is going to get tired, and they're going to need to get off the field, and they're not going to be able to. And Tom Brady's going to take advantage of that. I think it's going to be a close game in the end, but the Patriots are going to win. I think it's going to be something like 17-10 or 16-3 or something like that. In the end, Brady's going to be on the field a lot, and that's going to hurt the Jacksonville Jaguars for obvious reasons. And now we move on to Sunday Night Football, when the New York Giants go to face the Dallas Cowboys in probably the most popular rivalry in the NFL right now. Even though, to be honest, sometimes this matchup is not good because both teams are bad. And I don't know why the NFL continues to push it. I mean, I get it. It's a big time rivalry. And anytime the Cowboys are on any kind of prime time slot, the NFL's numbers go up or whatever. But either way, I don't know. There's sometimes they really should just keep it for 1 o'clock. But anyway, I see the Giants winning this game. And I see them doing much better on offense this week since they're going against a not as good defense as Jacksonville. Still good, but not as good. I think they're going to do much better. They're going to have a lot of big plays. Saquon Barkley's going to have a consistent running performance. And overall, I just don't see how Dallas can keep up. I mean, that New York defense is still pretty solid. And they're going to have to stop Zeke, of course. But I think they can do that. They got Damon Harrison. Damon Snacks Harrison. He shuts down the run pretty well all by himself. And he's got other guys to help him too. So overall, I feel confident that the Giants are going to pull this one out in Dallas as they have in games past. And I think they're going to do it again on Sunday night. And last but certainly not least, the Seattle Seahawks go to Soldier Field to face the Chicago Bears. And poor Russell Wilson. In 2 weeks, he will have had to face the two best pass rushers in the league at the moment, with Von Miller in week 1 and now Khalil Mack in week 2. I mean, oof. Did you guys see what Khalil Mack did last Sunday? He absolutely demolished that Packers offensive line. And he's going to get to Wilson, I think, at least 2 or 3 times, like Von Miller did. And it's going to be a good game overall. But that Bears defense is no joke. They may have given up that big lead against the Packers, but I don't know. It seemed like Aaron Rodgers was on some kind of happy magic pain pills or something. Because after the game, he was sounding kind of funny.
Did all the tests, and then I was in our indoor facility trying to get it loosened up. But I knew once I got back on the field, the adrenaline started going, I'd be able to hang in there.
What was the injury?
My knee.
Whoever posted that, by the way, I love them. No, but seriously, I think the Bears defense will rebound from this. And honestly, I still blame the Bears offense, or more specifically, the play calling for the Bears offense. 3rd and 1, why do you not run the ball? But, I went into more detail on that earlier in the show, so if you missed that, just go back. But case in point, I think that the Bears defense is going to do a good job against Seattle, and I think we'll see more improvements in play calling and just offensive production from the Bears offense as well. And it's going to be a close game, but they're going to hold it down and win the game at home. And I think the final score will be 24-17 Chicago. Well, guys, that's all I've got for this week. I want to thank you again for listening. And if you're interested, you can check out my Twitter at The Slant Show NFL. And feel free to like, subscribe, and when you subscribe, also click the little bell to notify you when new videos come out. This is a YouTube thing, and it's stupid in my opinion, but hey, that's YouTube. That's how they roll, apparently. And if you're listening to this on SoundCloud, well, disregard everything I just said. It doesn't matter at all. If you're listening on SoundCloud, just go ahead and give it a like. And on either platform, I would really appreciate it if you guys shared it with your friends and, anyone that's really into football and would like to listen to a podcast like this, because at this time, I don't have many viewers, and obviously having new viewers always helps. So whatever you guys can do, I'd greatly appreciate it. But I'm just glad I have people listening. It's awesome to have people listen to my opinions and hear me out. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this time. So in closing, football is good. I'm Chris Cavana, and I'll see you guys next time on The Slant.